So let's just like start the lecture, because and then we can talk a little bit. And Maram, you are here?
Yes, hi.
Hi, sorry for late.
Hi, no worries, no worries.
Yeah.
I was listening and it was actually nice. Hi, everyone. It was nice to know where are you heading and what is the things that you're facing. And to be honest, the lecture actually, it's going to solve this this issue that you were discussing about, because you're trying to deliver an idea to them that the design needs to be more to the core of the concept that you need, that you can apply it everywhere, and they might just studying the site by side. So I will try to make it short and start. Let me try to share my desktop. Just a second, I'm not like an expert with the Zoom. Can you share it from your side? I don't really.
You have a green button.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just...
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So I just share my screen, but it shows just the Zoom. It doesn't really. It gives me like photo, Zoom, Skype, Microsoft Teams. It doesn't show the.
It's fine.
Oh, okay.
I can share it from my side.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just go to the first one without like just showing the whole thingy? Okay. So so today the lecture is about the architecture of the senses. So it's, you know, you have to go all the way up at the beginning of the. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no. You have to go up to the with the presentation for the beginning.
Oh.
Yeah. So because you're showing it from the backwards. So. Hello.
I think Ziwa is offline and
you have
yes,
okay, because it's so the concept was here, like it's shared content. It's just giving me that I can share just the while you're sharing. Oh, okay, I can't share it because someone else is sharing that.
Okay, I will stop it from my side.
Let me try to share it from my side. Still, it's not working.
So it's yes. Right now you can share your screen.
It was just giving the photos. Cancel. Just iCloud Drive. And just a second. Get it out. Oh, yeah, but not this one. Okay, well, at least like we know now.
This is very cool. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So I can take off the sense. That's the first.
No. Actually, that's why I sent the presentation to Ziwar. I told him most probably I'm gonna face problems if you can share it from your side. He's like, yeah, sure. So let me just.
Ziwa, could you send me the lecture? Then I can share it from my screen.
Sorry, just a second.
Just 2 seconds.
He said he already sent it to you, to your email. So, Okay, so do you want us to share it again?
I will share it. Good. So,
Can you?
so Maram, I will share it from my side, and
Yeah, sure.
you say you must say me go ahead in the next
Yeah, no worries.
page.
No worries, no worries.
Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4. So
Okay, that's cool.
good.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the architecture of the senses. I'm not sure if you are familiar with this approach for architecture. What does it really mean that we can engage our senses to perceive any building? So what is the senses that we use to perceive the building? Is it maybe like all of us, we think that it's our vision, which is what we perceive the buildings usually with, but does it really is the truth that we just perceive the buildings by our sight? So as we know, and we can all see, it's the vision and the hearing, the smell and the taste and the touch is our senses, where we perceive the world around us generally, not just in the architecture. So if you can just go to the second page. So I will start with the touch, which I think is the most important, and a lot of other architects think that it's the most important. If you can go to the second page. So there is a really good architect. His name is Juhani Palsama. He has this really awesome book. It's called The Eyes of the Skin. In this book, he explains our interaction and our usage of senses within the buildings. So he say, and we're quoting here, the skin is one of the oldest and most sensitive of our organ. Our first medium of communication. Touch is the parent of our eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. So, and then he go and call it as the mother of senses. So the touch is our way to integrate our experience of the world and to locate ourselves inside the space. And all the other sense follow. And as Juhani call it, it's the our boundary line of the wall. But what does it really mean in the architecture world? Like, you just maybe asking, like, okay, the touch is helping us to perceive the world, but what does it really mean? So for us as an architect, if we want to create a space, usually it's two types of spaces. It's even accommodation or integration. So what we need to do is we need to strengthen the feeling of being inside the space. I mean, if I'm just saying something that it doesn't really make sense to you, you can just stop me and ask me about it more. So this is the job of the architect, is to make us feel more of our existence in the world. If we can go to the next slide. As Juhani said, the sense of self, strengthened by art and architecture, the ultimate meaning of any building is beyond architecture. It directs our consciousness back to the world and toward our sense of self and beings. So here we're talking about more of how the architecture can reinforce our existence. It's not just designing a building. And then he adds, he say, profound architecture make us experience ourselves as a complete embodied spiritual beings. In fact, this is the great function of all the meaningful art. So when any person, he or she, perceive a building, he doesn't just perceive it as a rational pictures. We perceive it in all the embodied images that we have it in our brain, in all the embodied culture, in all the embodied feelings, fears that we have. So we go actually deeper. So what is the job of an architect or an artist? And I always like to say that the architecture and the art is a one thing, is to create spaces that go deeper in our sense. So we need to be more aware of ourselves to be able to create spaces that strengthen the self of being, the sense of being for the people who's gonna live or use this space. So if we think about it in this way, we just can see a link about the philosophy and the architecture. If you go to the next slide, Ludwig said, he's a philosopher, he said, working in philosophy is like working in architecture in many respects. It's really more a work in oneself. No one owns an interpretation on how we see things. Which means what? Which means that if we look at the architect's work within himself, and then he goes back to the world. So he puts all the ideas that he have, all the integration information that he have from his word, and then he put it in the space so people can perceive the same idea somehow. So if we look at the architecture just a way, we just go back and we look at the architecture not from the architect's point of view. If we look at it from the philosophy point of view, from the neuroscience point of view, from the psychology point of view, we can see the core of architecture. The architect job is not just to create spaces which look nice or looks cool. He needs to create spaces that people can feel more themselves inside this space. So what is the problem now in our time, that we have all those cool programs, modern programs that helps us to design in a really easy way, AutoCAD, Revit, 3D Max, Rhino. But what happened actually is that we overuse it. So we lost this, we created a distance between the architect and between his feelings. So the self sense, it had been shifted away from the architect. Of course, the easiest way to shorten this distance between the architect and his work is to keep the architect using his hand, doing sketches, doing mock-ups, as you said, Mahmoud, previously, to imagine the space properly, because the screens create those distance between us and between the spaces that we are designing. So what are we designing really now? Like, if you look at all the architects now in the world, we just think that they are designing spaces that looks nice. But does they really do that? I mean, if we think about it, there's a lot of architects and that they design buildings to make us just go out more, to be exterior more, to go to the nature more, which means that they are following the embodied thoughts that they have since we were really in the beginning of our existence on Earth. And here Yohani called this situation as the unconscious peripheral perception. And here where we see that the psychology of the architect is affecting his architecture. It's not just the psychology actually of the architect, it's the psychology of the person himself who's perceiving the space. So this links us with another thing, which calls in the psychology, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a German word called Gestalt, which means the form. I'm not sure if my pronunciation is good. So if you can go to the next slide, there is something called the Gestalt psychology. So the Gestalt psychology, it's a really nice theory brought by three German philosophers, And actually, I shared with Ziwar a link of a YouTube, a really small video. I don't know, Mahmoud, if you can open it from your side.
Yes, I can open
It's
it.
just 2 minutes. Yeah, it's just 2 minutes, but it will explain the idea better than me. In the email itself, you can just find it inside the email. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, but you have to put the sound on.
Okay, I will.
We can't hear. So you have to share the voice of it or something.
Doesn't work, or?
No, it works. We can see it, but we can't hear it. I don't know. It's from my side. I don't know if everyone else can hear it.
And I don't know why.
Maybe you should make, you don't put your headphones if you're putting your headphones. Just keep it on the
I
speaker.
don't have headphones.
Okay.
So I can't hear it either. Okay. Anybody has
maybe put the headphones.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Do you hear something?
Yeah, a bit. You need to increase the voice from the YouTube.
Okay. Right now?
So little.
Or you see handlebars, pedals, spokes, tires, brakes, seat, and a frame. If you're human, I'm guessing you saw
Maybe you can share the link with us and we can see it individually.
seeing a whole rather than the individual parts, called gestalt psychology. Its principles are especially important for designers in creating complete, compelling visuals. Because of
Can we
psychologists
share it?
Wertheimer, Kurt Kafka, and Wolfgang Kohler,
It makes it was getting better. I don't know what you did. You moved your hands. It was the mics went somewhere.
some of the figure and others of the background. Similarity. The notion
I shared it in the chat.
Okay, so if when everybody see it, just let us know so we can keep going.
Maybe you can summarize and talk about it.
that we group together objects.
Yeah, well, they have to see it. It's more like shapes and stuff, you know.
The idea that our minds close objects that are not necessarily together but complete in order to create a whole. Continuity. The theory that we continue to follow objects to visually align until they are interrupted. Order. The belief that alignment and symmetry are attractive and essential elements of design.
Works.
Works?
Yeah, so just bring it back to the beginning.
What's the first thing you see?
Okay.
Do you see a bicycle? Or do you see handlebars, pedals, spokes, tires, brakes, a seat, and a frame? If you're human, I'm guessing you saw a bike. This idea that we make sense of things by seeing a whole rather than the individual parts is called gestalt psychology. And its principles are especially important for designers in creating complete and compelling visuals. Because of psychologists Max Wertheimer, Kurt Kafka, and Wolfgang Kohler, Gestalt theory can be broken down into 6 design principles. Figure ground. The thought that when we look at a scene, we separate objects so that some are the focus or figure and others are the background. Similarity. The notion that we place objects with similar characteristics in a group. These characteristics can include color, size, font, shape, texture, and more. Proximity. The belief that we group together objects that are close to each other. Closure. The idea that our minds close objects that are not necessarily together or complete in order to create a whole. Continuity, the theory that we continue to follow objects that are visually aligned until they are interrupted. Order, the belief that alignment and symmetry are attractive and essential elements of design. When Gestalt principles are ignored, designs tend to look out of place or incomplete, forcing our eyes to focus on little inconsistencies rather than the greater whole. You may not know exactly what seems off, but you will feel something is out of place. The best designs, unintentionally, make the world feel a little less chaotic.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud.
Welcome.
Okay, so we can see here that the psychology gets inside the design, and then suddenly the design makes sense, and suddenly we can just easily, we can hear your music. Okay.
That was from my YouTube. Okay.
Okay, so so I was saying that from the psychology we can get just a small information or like just observation, and it makes our life as a designer easier, as an architect easier, and at the same time we understand more how the people are perceiving the spaces, perceiving the shapes, perceiving the colors. So so all those principle is in our unconscious brain. So it's not like something that we know that if we did this that it looks nice. I mean, by time, because now we're learning, we know it, but generally before they didn't know it, so they had to try more and more. So we can see here the interaction between the psychology and the architecture, and this is really important from the point of view that you are doing now the reconstruction of the cities. You have to always take care of the psychology of the space that you are designing, and what is the psychology of the people that they are there. Just when you said, like when Ziwar was saying that people, they don't consider that this places belong to them if it's not really, I mean, if they are in Syria, if it's not really under his properties. So this is part of the psychology of the people. So if we look at the architecture, to the core of architecture, we have to link it to other studies. We have to link it to other fields of study, just like a psychology or neuroscience or philosophy. So there is another, if you went to the other page, the second one. Okay, so Richard Rorty, he's an American philosopher. He said a really nice sentence. He's like, if the body had been easier to understand, nobody thought that we had a mind. So, and this is so true. So we had to have all those neurological experiences on our brains that we can perceive, to know how to perceive the spaces more, to know how our bodies interact with the space more. So this is for the sense of the touch, the things that we and to be honest, there is here one thing that it's out of the academic speech, but if we think about something that you really like it, when you look at it, you just feel like you want to touch it. So it is this, we have as a human this desire to touch stuff, which when it gives give us the thrill that, oh, it's really nice, or oh, I really want to see it closely. So speaking about seeing it closely, we're gonna move to the next one, which is the next slide, which is we're gonna talk about the second sense, which is the eyes, and everybody think that this is the most important thing. So in the Western culture, we started with the Greek, and then here Heraclitus, he said the eyes are more exact witness than the ears. So there was a movement in the Greek time to appreciate the vision more than the other senses. And then when they moved to the next generation, which is the Renaissance, if you can just go to the next slide, they had the same appreciation, and then they categorized our senses in a hierarchical system where they put the vision in the top of the pyramid, and then they put the touch in the bottom. And then they linked the senses that we have. They link it to more like the sources of the planet that we're living in. So they just correlate to the vision to the fire and light, hearing to the ear, smell to vapor, and taste to water, and touch to earth. So there was a movement to appreciate the vision over all other senses. And this, to be honest, had been continued to be the same for our time, our modern time. If we can go to the second page, yeah. So we are giving all this important to. Sorry, I don't know. Like my phone doesn't really ring at home, so you're like, yeah. So we give all this importance, even in the modern world, to all this vision, which creates, as Juhani said on his book, ocular centrism. Ocular centrism is when we just focus on what we see, when the vision becomes our, let's say, the only sense that we are using while we're designing. And as Nietzsche said, I would describe it as an eye outside of time and history, which means it's an eye of an architect or an artist that neglects all other senses, neglect all other integrated information from our history, our sense of being, is just focusing on how the buildings look like. So if we go to the other page, after having this term, Juhani makes a jump to another term, and it's called the narcissistic and nihilistic eye, which means he's describing the architects who just think of themselves somehow. They just think on how cool is their buildings look like. And he described it saying, many of architectural projects of the past 20 years, and Juhani is still living, so you can imagine which time we're talking about. So many of architectural projects of the past 20 years celebrated by international architectural press express both narcissism and nihilism. And then he adds, the narcissistic eye view architecture solely as a means of self-expression, as an intellectual, artistic game, detached from the essential mental and societal connection. Which means there is a lot of well-known famous architects, which their projects all over the press, and they just care in one thing, that, oh, my buildings looks cool. But if you put this building, you're just gonna know that this building will not last after 100 years. It's just gonna look out of space. It's gonna look out of the harmony inside it. And this is really helps you to think when you're designing now for those old cities. I know you're going for the eco, for reconstruction, for everything, but you need to understand that this part of a city that's already there. So we can't just satisfy our ego to create something really cool and nice, but it doesn't really fill this gap. To be honest, I'm so impressed with the way that they reconstruct Hamburg city, because you can walk in the street, you can just feel that you're in the same city. If you're not architects, you're not going to notice the difference. But if you're an architect, you're just going to see a building with a 100, 200, 300 years old, and next to it there's one building that's just under construction, and still it had the same feeling. It still they kept the identity of the city. The ego of the architects that they designed Hamburg in the city, it wasn't overdoing the stuff, you know? So sometimes simplicity, it makes more sense. So this is, to be honest, it's one of the most common problems that we have in the architecture field those days, that all the architects, they have this narcissistic eye to create something that really stand out in the press. If we can go more, so here we can see in this painting that everybody loves, that when we like something, as I was just saying before, when we like something, we like to touch it. So the eye is not really the witness. the touch is the witness of what we saw, of what we see. So he says, the saint, he says, unless I see the nail marks on his hand and put my finger where the nail were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it. So even the eye is not the thing that it's not the sense or the sight, it's not the sense that we think it's properly giving us the sense of reality. So the sense of reality might move from the narcissistic eye to the touch and be able to touch the things. So what help us go more to the narcissistic eye is the problem that we have all this press, all this media, and we want to impress everyone. And here we care about how our buildings look like. It's not like how our tenant feeling inside our spaces. If we can go more to the next slide. So it's actually a really nice how you can see that the architecture is like everywhere, but we don't really think that it's everywhere, but it's everywhere. He say the Walter, he's an Austrian, he's an American, he works in the history, and he said the words were oral and it shifted. And here I'm not quoting exactly his words, I'm explaining the idea just to be scientifically on the good rights. Anyway, the words were oral and shifted to the vision sense when the humans start writing the language. So before we were just focusing on our ears, we hear stuff and then we do stuff as an old human. When we start to have a language and then we started to see the words as a picture, we shifted from an oral word to a vision word. So we can indicate exactly where we shifted as a human in our history, where we shifted from being focusing on our other sense and then shifting everything to the side. So if we think about it, in the beginning when the humans started to do buildings, and this is really important for your course, that they were just doing buildings. They were not doing actually buildings. They were doing spaces that contains people. So this space, they just followed the movement and the need. Like, how can we move from this space to this space, and if this space serve our need or not? This is the core of architecture. This is what was the core of architecture. By time, we weren't really looking how our cave looked like. But by time we started to look how, oh, my cave look cooler than your cave. And then we started to put the shade, to put the vision, give it more priority on other senses. So it's not the problem that we focus on the vision, it's the problem that we don't abandon our other senses. You know, it's nice to have a really good looking building, but at the same time, if the people inside it, they don't feel belong to it, it's really nothing. And think about it, when you go to a really modern high-tech building, as a mall, for example, will you ever feel that it's your home? Never, ever, because it's a high-tech. It just give more attention to how it looks like. It's not like how it makes us feel. So we go to the next slide. Our lovely Le Corbusier. He said, I exist in life only if I can see, and they consider him one of the architects that he just focused on the vision. I urge you to open your eyes. Do you open your eyes? Do you know how to open your eyes? Do you open them often, always well? And of course, this is like the ultimate focusing on the vision. But Le Corbusier didn't fall in this trap, because he was, and we all know that he was a big fan of sketching, a big fan of doing mock-ups. So he was focusing on this sense, but he was focusing on the other sense in a different way. And of course, here his words, it's more like a philosophy sentence, not like just focusing on one thing. So all this create what Johanne called it memorable visual image, which means this is how we explain our architecture today. So if we go to the second page, Johanne called it to use the psychological strategy of advertising, which means our building, it's exactly the same as the Coca, since he was bringing the Coca speech. It's just like the same as a Coca advertising on the television. It needs to look cool, needs to make people want to look at it, but doesn't really help our health or doesn't really help our existence. So, and then he adds, buildings have turned into image products, detached from existential depth and sincerity. And to be honest, since you're designing for old cities, since you're designing for developed cities, this is really an important point. Don't detach yourself from the atmosphere that you're designing for. Don't go with how nice we can make our building look and how comfortable for the people around, or for the people who's living on this area to be fill full more with our design. If we go to the next one, so you can see like all of them literatures, philosophers, and they're all of them talking the architecture in a certain way. And Frederick Jameson, who said, it's fixation with an appearance and surfaces and instant impact that have no sustaining power over time, which you can see in all the malls, all the world, and doesn't really need a lot of explanation. So as I said, we need to focus more in the core of architecture and look at it from a literal point of view, from history point of view, from psychology, neuroscience point of view. If you can go back, go more to the next one, Paul Cézanne. I don't know if I'm saying his name in the French properly. To make visible how the world touches us, and he's an artist and talking about his paintings, and we can see exactly that this can work for us as an architect, and we need to make people feel that this spaces belong to them and touch them somehow. So this is all about, we talk about a lot about our vision. If you can go more, so the hearing, if you can go exactly. So here Johan is saying, building do not react to our gaze, but they do return our sounds back to our ears, which is a really cool thing. Like, as much as we think that we engage with the building with our eyes, but to be honest, the buildings engage with us with the sound. If we want to describe it, I'm just going to give you a small example, which is from our daily life. Imagine that you're watching a movie and then suddenly there is no sound in the background. Just suddenly the actor or the actress will look that they are overacting. That's right? Well, just the only one who think that if they took the music out, it looks weird. Or think that you are, for example, walking in Hamburg, Berlin, Damascus, Aleppo, whatever, and then suddenly someone put the city on under mute. You're just gonna feel scary, lost. You just feel you can't indicate where you are. So our hearing helps us to indicate the spaces. We don't know this, but this happens to us every single day. Let me give you another example that can help you to understand the idea. Imagine that you're sleeping in the middle of the night and then suddenly the train passed by. Or if you're not in a place that there was trains, let's say a car passed by or an ambulance passed by. In this little second, when you open your eyes that you woke up, this sound makes you feel the sense of yourself in this space. You feel like, oh my God, like this sounds make me aware of the space. You didn't see anything. So it's again, it's the sense of hearing that makes us indicate the space. If we think about it in a different way, you enter a space and it's totally dark. How can you indicate your way? It's from the door sound, or from the wind shivering, or from the floor cracking under your feet, or from all those little sounds that comes to you. It helps you to indicate the space. So what does that mean? Like, maybe you're saying, she's talking a lot about stuff that doesn't really we can really implement it in our space. If we took Zabadani, for example, everybody knows that Zabadani knows as a really calm space, but not in the morning, because in the morning there is all those open markets and everybody is walking and everybody is going around. If you build anything in the middle of this city, in the middle of this open city, that it's closed and that's just hiding the sounds from around the spaces, people will not feel comfortable. They will feel that they are detached from the environment that they are in. Although it's just the sound. Maybe if you open windows here and there, or you make openings, or you make skylights or something that makes the sound of the outside atmosphere goes to the inside, they're just gonna feel more comfortable. And this leads us to the modern. I'm just gonna think that I want to put my home from clay. No, but in the modern society, with the modern architecture, we're using a really advanced material, which materials have a sound insulation, which is really cool if you put it like in a mall or if you put it in a theater. But think about it, if you are putting it everywhere, we're just blinding our ears. Like, we don't want to hear our neighbor, we don't want to hear the street, how it sounds like, we don't want to hear anything. So we're just blinding our ears. And when we're blinding our ears, we're creating more space between us and the space that we are living in. We feel more detached. So it's really important that we use the modern material. Like, for example, like now you want to make a mosque inside the area, or a church, or you want just to make a space for meditation inside your project. For sure, you can use the area. You can use, the material that can block. And then here you can move to the second one. Orson Welles, he say, and I can see just a second here. So we can stop whenever you want, guys, but I can just finish the sound part. Okay, so Orson Welles is an American actress. He say on his film, "Your ear receives the impact of both the length and the cylindrical form of a tunnel." Think about it, you're in a tunnel. Just from the sound, you can indicate what is the length of this tunnel. If you just like say, you can just indicate the length and the width of it. So our hearing is much more important than we think it is. I don't know, Ziwar, if I have time, or I should just close it here. We still have two senses, the smell and the taste. So we can stop here. And I just wanted to say that when you want to design a space, just think about it as a human, more than just think about it as a designer, more than you just think about it as an architect. Especially you're designing for children. The colors means, the smells means, the sounds that they hear. It means if you make a children go for an area that it's super silent, he's going to feel so odd. He's going to feel scary. If the spaces that created, it's over huge for his size as like a huge buildings, and he's so tiny, he's going to feel overwhelmed, and he's going to feel his disconnected from this space. So I'm not sure if I have time I can continue. If I don't have time, you just let me know. Hello?
As I asked the students,
Okay.
We can let Maram or we stop here. Anna, Katya, Sophie, Lynn, too.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I am really enjoying the presentation. So please go on.
Okay, thank you.
You keep ahead. So I like the presentation, and this is
okay, thank you so much. So I just want to say something about the noise that we're talking. There is something called the architecture of silence, which is a really cool concept. I don't know if it started with the pyramids, but most probably it started with the pyramids. So if you look at the pyramids, if you go to the next page, if you look at the pyramids, so the pyramid is a temple for the people who's dead. So you go and they put you away from all the sounds in the world, and you just stand in front of this grave, and it's the moment of the silence that touched the life, touched the death for them. So the silence was the moment that you realize the life. So it is important sometimes in some spaces that you can just make it absolutely silent. Just like if you go to the next slide, it is, we see it in the temple, we see it in the mosque, we see it in the church. It's all spaces that when you go in, you feel peaceful because it's silent. So we need to know and we need to learn when we're going to use the sound and when we're going to use being silent. And this is a really important approach for the architect. I mean, if he learned how to use the sound on his string as a strength point for him. If we go to the other one, it's the smell. So the smell is really interesting because for me, if someone told me, how do you remember your grandparents' home? I'm just gonna say it smells something. I mean, all of us have grandparents that smell something. You can maybe remember the space, or you can remember colors, or maybe you remember something. But if it was a really, really old memory, whenever you pass next to some type of medicine that your grandfather or your grandmother was usually taking it, you will feel like, oh my God, this reminds me of my grandfather or grandmother home. Why all the abandoned spaces, the empty spaces, have the exact same smell? What is this smell? Isn't it like we can just go to a place without opening the door? We just open the door and then we feel like, oh, it smells abandoned, right? Like we can smell abandoned spaces. And why the old town always smells different than the new town? Like when we go to the middle of the city, it smells different than the middle of the city, so than the new cities. So
maybe
the
materials.
smell is, sorry,
maybe
exactly.
From the materials.
Exactly. So it's let's talk now more in a neuroscience, since it's my preferences. So in the neuroscience, they say that our nerves can indicate 10,000 smell. Just one nerve can indicate 10,000 smell. So it's actually, they call it, it's the most persistent memory. It's the smell. So there's nothing more than the smell that makes us recognize or indicate a space. But how can we really use it in the design? If you can go to the next page. John, he's a professor in something that is engineering, science, and whatever government environment. It's just something that's really far from our subject. Anyway, so he say all the brain evolution has taken a place from the chemical sensing. It is thought to be the most primal pathway to understand our brain evolution. So all the scientists they were able to understand our function, how our brain functioned the space, or how our brain functioned generally from the smells, because it had, even in the brain, it had a certain area where this is just for the smell. You know, like other senses, they just like share the other brain, but this is area that's just like for smell. So it had been always an easier spot for all the neuroscientists to go and indicate all our interaction for the space. So how can we really use it? I mean, if you think about it, the stone had a smell. Like, I don't know if someone knows Aleppo. It's my hometown. And in Aleppo, when the rain goes, when it's raining, it's all made from the same type of stone. It's a stone from Aleppo. So all the city smells the same. And it smells wet stone, wet, nice stone, whatever. So the stone have a smell. But when you go to other areas, like, I don't know, like Cleveland, it's all made of, like, all the houses made of wood. So when it's raining, it have a different smell. So if you go to the next, so Kate Micklin, she's C. Micklin, if I'm pronouncing her name right. She's a professor in psychology, so she's not even near to us. She made a really, really cool project that I think that we need to move it to architecture. She said, and I'm quoting here, what smells like home to you? To some people in Ellesmere Port, So I think it's a city in England, industrial city in northern England. It smells like a local industries. So sometimes it's not, home doesn't really smells like a cake or whatever. It's just maybe smells like tires or steel. So she did a really nice experience, which is if you go to the next, she did what it's called smell mapping. So what she did, she gets people, I think 12 people, and then she gave them this sheet that have smells like a newspaper, bread, coffee, whatever. And she told them to move around. So this city is in New York City, and they indicate whatever they smells. And she make a map. So she make this map for New York, and you go more. She make it for New York. If you go to the next page, she make it for Spain. If you go, but just to the next page, please. Okay, she make it for Amsterdam, and she make it for Northern Space. Of course, now you're gonna ask me, not everybody smell the same thing. Like, you know, some of us smell the trees, some of us, they don't smell it. So she said, the goal of my project is to archive the small spaces, to investigate them, to visualize them, to create sort of a flicker of a smell. If you think about it, is it when you are building this pavilion, or you are building this inner space inside your area for the reconstruction? Let's say there was let's say there was I don't know what they call it, a bakery, you know, so I was gonna say it in French. They make a bakery in the corner, and all the people that they live in this neighborhood, they indicate their neighborhood with the smell of the bakery. If I came and renovate the space and remove the bakery, I'm actually removing one of the identity of the space. So it is something important for us. If we want to plan something, if we want to design something that really doesn't feel awkward or weird or new to people. So we need to respect the source of smells that we have in each city or in each district that we are designing for. So this is for the, and of course, if you want to build in Aleppo, you have to build with our stone. If you go to the next one, it's the last one. It is the taste, and here we say Christopher Day. He's a professor of education and social of science. Again, we can see how much we are important. Everybody wants to, you know, like talk about us and go into our buildings. If a building can breathe in, can it not be tasted? So if any one of you, if you see like all those videos about the cute kids that they just, whenever they like something, they grab it and they put it in their mouth. So it's our premium sense. So it's just like, yeah, I like it, just put it in my mouth. So putting something in your mouth, it means that it is desirable, and this is what indicates, and what it indicates that they call the sexy thing is when you want to put it in your mouth, which means what is you put it in your mouth, that means it is beautiful, it is desirable. But what does it really connect to us as an architect? I mean, who wants to put anything on his mouth in the architecture? If you go to the second page. So here, this is for the church for Richard Meyer in Rome, and the press, they describe it as it's a nougat with a taste of a coconut and eggshell. So it's, even when we want to go and like describe a building in a nice way, we're gonna describe it like food. It means that doesn't mean it's a food, but it means that it empower our desire of taste, which means that we are hitting the good design spot. And then you can go to the next page. John Ruskin, he's an English art critic. He said, and of course, all of them, they likes us, so all of them keep talking about us. I should like to eat up this Verona touch by touch. So you can see that even when they want to describe a building that they like it so much, they say like, want to touch this, they want to taste this space. So Johanni said that one building, he was moving to this building, it was a new building. I think it's the Academy of Neuroscience in Michigan. He said when I arrived there, he saw the building, he really liked the building, so he came to touch it. And then when he found the stone, he didn't really indicate what stone it is. So he come up to the wall and he licked the wall to understand what it is. So all the senses, I know that it seems far away from us, but as much as we engage our designs with those senses, we make it easier for people to make that they are feeling home, they are feeling safe, or they are feeling that they are in their comfort zone. So for the kids, I know that you're designing for the kids, so if you can move to the next page, we can see that colorful things, colorful colors, it makes it always good for kids to come, to touch it, to be able to be next to it. And this is, to be honest, it's a part of our desire of putting everything, tasting everything in our mouth. And it's one of the really nice things that I read about the colors, and I'm closing in here, that if you want to sell in a candy shop, you have to paint it pink. And if you want the diabetes people not to eat as much sugar, as much food, you have to paint their kitchen with a lilac color, or the light purple, because it's prevent their appetite to consume sugar. So the color it's even play with our desire to eat. So we need to put it in our senses. Like if you're making a restaurant for those kids, or if you're making a candy shop for them, so you need to really indicate the right color with the right degree. So, and of course, speaking about the colors and the effect on the psychology, it's a huge, let's say a huge, I don't know, so huge to me to talk about. So what I wanted to deliver from this small lecture, and I know that it took long, that when you design foreign areas that already existed, you have to really respect them. But to respect them, you have to understand them. And to understand them, you have to understand yourself. And we can't understand ourselves if we didn't go super closely to our psychology and our unit as a human, and what really drives us to feel comfortable or uncomfortable with all our senses. And sorry for making it long for you guys. And hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Maram.
You're welcome.
This is I'm impressive. Also, this is very cool, and I would like to thank you for the informative presentation. It's open for me also more perspective in architecture. Gestalt is a new definition for me right now. So I understand right now where come this word, and what, not that where come, but in architecture mean, I think.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, the 5 sense, they come not
as a one?
As a one.
How it comes as a one?
Yeah.
I mean. So how it comes as a one? It's you need to think about yourself as an architect. And to be honest, this is a thing, like I newly know it, but because I like to read weird stuff. So they divide architects when they become really famous architects. They divide them, like this architect is a visual architect, and this architect he's a more into taste architect. So apparently they divide us as an architect, which you mean that we can't really focus in all of them together. Like somehow Le Corbusier, he went to the vision, and somehow other went to the sense of shadow and light. So he the sense of silence and voice. But I mean, for me as a designer, like I have been working as an architect for 10 years. For me, when I design something, I look at the space and I look what is the most important thing, and I try to accommodate all the 5 senses. I mean, it's hard, especially if you don't have, like, for example, all the German students now, they can't really know what is the smell of the city. They can't really know what is the sound of the city. So it is the responsibility of the Syrian architects to deliver this type of information for them, so they can be able to design something that really fits well. So it's just to pay attention to the details, and then suddenly it makes sense, like, because if you never think about it, you will never know it. But when you start thinking about it, that means it means something, even in your unconscious. Like now in your unconscious, you're gonna think, oh my God, like, no, this material seems off, or oh my God, this material seems so too bright, or I don't want to put it in my mouth, So yeah.
This is a good point of view, Azum. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was really nice to meet you all.
Me too.
And if anyone have any question or anything you want to know more about, I can send you the email, and you can send me whatever you want. And I just wanted to say that architecture is a way beyond than just designing in space. It's a way more.
Cool. Anybody has question?
I think all of them went to sleep.
Actually, it's not a question. Maybe like you are making me like want to make some like discussions with you. I don't know.
Okay.
I know that you don't have the time, but in general, I really liked the presentation. And,
thank you so much.
And with relation to Mahmoud's idea about combining all of those into like one system or one way of designing buildings or spaces, maybe we could. I don't know if you like researched into this idea. Like maybe we could use now artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Sure.
And for combining all of these stuff. So because AI and machine learning, they are tools. So they could help us in doing this. And actually, really interesting lecture. And as Mahmoud also, it opened up like a window in my mind about architecture.
That's really important. Yeah. To be honest, I write a sentence in my lecture, but I totally missed it. I don't know why. It's the same way that the human were able to create all those technology to strengthen our vision. They can make other technologies to strengthen our other senses. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna add a small experience in Hamburg, and I don't know, like if someone here from Hamburg is gonna tell me like you really love Hamburg, but I really love Hamburg. When I was there, they have a museum for blind people. So in this museum, not for blind people, it's a blind experience. So in this museum, they put you in a space that you can't really see anything, and you just depend on your other senses to perceive the space. And in the first 1 minute, you just feel lost. You just feel scared. You just feel you don't really know where you are. But by time you can see how much your ears and like the side of listening just like 10 times bigger, and the side of touch and smell, like like I still remember how I can indicate that I'm going in a garden just because they make a smell of a small grass with a water. And we weren't in a garden, we were inside a museum, so it was just the smell. So it's, to be honest, because we have our eyes, and we're thankful to have our eyes, but I mean, we're putting too much in it and too much to explore it. So if, as you said, if the modern technology helped us to indicate more, to strengthen more our other senses, it will be awesome, Just like this lady, she's a psychologist, and then she come up with a mapping of the smells of a city, and this will help. Imagine if all the cities we make a smell mapping for it, and then just we know how to keep the identity of each city,
Exactly. Like this, with regard to the smelling and the vision and the touching, like maps of these.
Exactly.
Yeah. And combining these maps together to make some limitations to our design, but these limitations would be actually empowering our design.
Exactly. And this is when Ziwar was talking to Anna, I think, when he was telling her that you need to make a standard for all the spaces. Maybe the standards that we're looking here is just to understand the Syrian culture, and then we can come up with any design. Like you're not Syrian culture. It means as a Syrian. I mean, as how the people who's living there perceiving the smell, how they perceiving the light, how they perceiving the all those senses. And just we say like, okay, I'm not using a new material because they have been used to this material. Or if I want to use a new material, I make those material taste the same, look the same, feel the same, but it had more quality of let's say more quality of ventilation, more quality of strengthen. You know, like I can enhance what the people feel comfortable with. It's not just like
exactly. But I'm afraid with like of one thing in this kind of thinking or in this way of approaching architecture. Are we like this somehow stuck in the past? How can we move forward in like in our buildings? How can
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will just add something that there is a new science. It's called the neuroscience of architecture, where they study the brain and how we perceive things, and help us to create spaces that we are more into it. Which means the Gestalt. Like let's talk about what we saw. The Gestalt, it had been forever, but did anyone like lighten it up? Forever we like to see symmetrical, but we've never think about it this way. Are we sticking in the past? No, it's part of our psychological identity. It's not like
I don't mean in this way. I mean like when we take, like for instance, when we analyze the smellings of these neighborhoods, or we analyze like the something related to the vision and to the touch.
Yeah.
We are putting boundaries about how like as I told you, there are so many advantages to this, but the only thing I am afraid of, and not only afraid of, this is how I see the world and architecture in general. I like, how can we not only, we should make relations to the existing stuff, but how can we not only make relations, but also make something extra, moving forward, like to reach a future point, to reach like something wasn't being experienced in this specific site, something new.
So let's say that you are designing for this neighborhood for the kids, okay, and those kids, they don't have any colorful buildings, okay. That doesn't mean that you don't bring a colorful building. This colorful building will be so nice to them, and they will feel so like, oh my God, it's something new. We like it. We want to touch it. We want to go. So it's to find the balance between what images that had embodied in our images and what is the space that provided us. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's just like you understand what had been embodied in us because we live in this space, and what is part of us as a human. For example, let's say we can smell everything. Like, let's say that Zabadani, everybody knows that it's a green area. Okay, we can enhance this green, the smell of the green. Maybe no, maybe you want to add more as a, let's say, sweet smell. And then you open 2 bakeries in the end of your neighborhood. So you're adding something. You might be adding something, but this thing is not disrupting those people. Like if you added like, let's say a factory, or you added a zoo that brings a smell that's not desirable. So you have 2 options. Even you keep your project and you make it super insulated so the smell doesn't go out, or you're gonna threaten that the people will think that, oh my God, the city smells now, and we just don't wanna enter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just to let's say to empower the things that you feel it's good as your point as your point as an architect, and dispower the things that you think like, no, I don't think this is too much noise, let's just like reduce it, let's just move the street to the other side. That doesn't mean that you are changing the identity of the city, you know?
Yeah, really interesting stuff actually. And
you're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I would like to advise our students to focus on one point. They have a short time to think about a good concept, reconstruction, and
with all the senses
and some senses, then they will come niemals. Also, from nothing. But I think focus for one sense. So I think what you as example that the kids, as we talk about the echo of children as place room for the kids, and I think this is a good point of view that we think about the colors. Maybe it's not for buildings, so for the place or the grounds or everything from also is a combination, a good combination with the project and the colors. Maybe this is one point of view, but we are very late with the time. I would like to maybe to stop. Ayman has he has raised the hand. Do you want to add something, Ayman? Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Cool. I would like to thank you.
Thank you so much, all.
For the meeting.
Thank you so much. It was an honor for me to meet you all, and hope I can see the final projects.
Yeah, you are always welcome.
Thank you so much.
And the school, do you have visited Hamburg? Maybe meet each other.
Yeah, all of us.
All of us in Hamburg.
All of us, we can go, yeah.
Cool, with Ziwa and the other students. Maybe it's in the future.
Hopefully.
Thank
you.
Have a nice week.
You too.
And, we see you.